Good morning, everyone. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about an incredible character I've been playing, an Acid Arrow Archer. Now, I say Archer for a very particular reason, because this is no Ranger, like Strimtom's Acid Arrow. This is actually a brand new build called Strimtom's on Acid Arrow. It's a little bit different, because here, instead of playing as a Ranger to get all the cool Arcane Archer stuff and splashing into Deepwood Stalker for all that additional actual damage, we are going into the half-elf tree to get the Arcane Archer tree and using no Ranger whatsoever. The idea, or at least the original idea, was to combine Eldritch Knight with Arcane Archer to get as much acid damage as possible and to see what exactly you can do as you move forward through the game. Now, this idea evolved a little bit over time, but the most important thing was getting all that acid damage on hit. On top of that, since you're playing as an intelligence-based character by being a wizard, you've got access to cool spells, and you even have more spell power since spellcraft scales off of your intelligence. The goal here is to create a character that is both fun to play and also fundamentally different than the Strimtom's Acid Arrow build. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that this is an easy build to play. Just the bare minimum requirements is to have 90 total points in your build. There's no flexibility on that. So if you don't happen to have 90 points in your build, then you won't be able to try out this character. And this is going to be one of the first characters I've made in a while, other than that awful Paladin build that you might actually be interested in playing that requires a lot of different points in your build. So this character just absolutely requires it because you really want to get 41 points in the Arcane Archer tree, and you really want to get the points in the Eldritch Knight tree. You need 14 points in the Elf tree to unlock Arcane Archer, and you really need Harper Agent to actually give you that physical damage. Now, as far as actually playing the character has been, it's been okay. I will say that the Arcane Archer build is quite fun, but what happens is that as you get higher level, the monsters get a lot more health. And the idea is that you're supposed to use critical damage to be able to overcome that because it's easier to get access to higher critical threat range, higher critical multiplier, and even for spellcasters, they start getting more spell crit. Well, you run into a lot of problems playing as a bow build. First, you attack really slowly in comparison to all other characters. Base attack bonus determines your attack speed with bows, and since wizards don't really have any base attack bonus to speak of whatsoever, you attack incredibly slowly. It gets a little bit easier once you actually pick up Knight's Training, which makes your base attack bonus equal to your level, but until that time, my god, it is slow, and you notice it. Now, every time you shoot, this build does a lot of individual damage. A lot of acid damage scaling from two separate sources, both the spell sword and the acid arrows effect. It's actually really good. The main issue is that every time you fire, you nearly kill a guy, and then you have to wait while you reload to fire again to then finish the person off and then move on to the next one. In a room with 10 monsters, you can imagine how long this process is going to take. So the character is defensive, and the character is powerful, but the character also runs into the problem of it's slow, and it is painfully slow. It's one of the reasons why I kind of stepped away from ranged combat in general, just because ranged combat feels pretty slow most of the time. I keep running into this problem where I'm shooting at monsters, and then I realize that how much more damage I'd be doing if I was just in melee hitting them 3 or 4 times in the same amount of time. Or even considering, what if I was just an Inquisitive, being able to shoot twice for every single shot? And this is actually the perfect time to bring up Inquisitives versus longbows. So for the longest time, a lot of people have been playing great crossbow builds instead of longbow builds because great crossbows are pretty great. They have really high base damage, they crit pretty much constantly, and the idea that you knock somebody down when you roll a 20 is insane for this defensive capability. But longbows had some cool things that they could do. You could combine Monk as well as Ranger, to get access to both many shot as well as 10,000 stars, which gave you a lot of good options in combat for dealing lots of damage. It's sort of Fusillade-esque, where the rogue gets to automatically reload their crossbow by splashing into Artificer. The Ranger gets to use many shot more often because they splash into Monk. Now, crossbow happen to be stronger than playing as an archer build just because it ends up hitting harder, and that's what matters more. But now we have the Inquisitive on the field, and the Inquisitive does something that neither of these builds do, which is attack real fast. Like, real fast. Every time you shoot with an Inquisitive, you actually shoot twice, and you pick up a ridiculous amount of ranged alacrity, which is compounded by the fact that hand crossbows, or just regular light and heavy crossbows, shoot faster than great crossbows. Now, this is by design. Great crossbows are meant to be big, great crossbows. You're shooting out a telephone pole. It's not meant to fire really quickly. But Inquisitive shots, they fire super fast, and it doesn't scale off your base attack bonus. It just happens to have a higher attack speed that scales really well with alacrity. Inquisitives picking up an extra 30% alacrity in their tree, similar to how rogues do, just means that they get to shoot crazy fast. And anyone can be an Inquisitive, giving you lots of different versatile abilities. So you don't have to be a wizard or a ranger. You could be whatever you want. You can be a favorite soul, so you get all sorts of healing. You could be a ranger, so you don't have to worry about getting any dexterity for all of the feats that you want to use. You could be a fighter and use Kensai and get crazy damage. But the main problem is it's the attack speed. Yes, okay, there are other issues with Inquisitive, like how Inquisitive happens to get more double shot, more ranged power out of their individual tree than the Arcane Archer tree, and the fact that law damage is better than the elemental damage because it's not reduced by anything, and it scales 200% off of range power, and you can get a lot of range power with the Inquisitive tree. Yes, these are all major problems that need to be addressed. But one of the biggest problems is that Inquisitive is really fun, and it's fun because it has more attack speed. Being able to attack and then have your attacks be shown as like working on monsters, the monsters actually getting hit by your attacks because you get to constantly fire them out, and mowing down large packs, that feels really good. But there becomes a point where when you're playing as an Arcane Archer, a pack of hobgoblins and a pack of kobolds take the same amount of time to kill, even though the hobgoblins have twice as much health, because you still have to wind up and fire your bow. Are you one-shotting everything? Yes. If there's 10 monsters, it takes you a ton of time. However, with the Inquisitive, you might deal less damage individually on per shot, but you get 2 shots and you just fire faster, allowing you to clear through packs and rooms much more quickly. It's that instant feedback that I think a lot of people are kind of missing out on when it comes to the Inquisitive versus the Archer builds. I don't think that Archer builds are, they're a little bit far behind when it comes to damage, but I think it's just the usability and the playability. The fact that you fire so slowly with ranged builds causes a huge disconnect between when the player is having instances of fun every time they're hitting the monster, and versus the Inquisitive, where you're always hitting the monster. Now, with update 44, there is going to be a change to the longbow builds so that they actually fire twice as fast in the early game, and they're just basically making it so that the attack speed scales less off of base attack bonus. I personally think it shouldn't scale off of base attack bonus and should just have the max attack speed right away. I don't think that there's any problem with that, especially considering that there's no 30% additional attack speed that you can get out of Ranger, Arcane Archer, or anywhere else. But that's my opinion. However, I will say that the changes are a lot nicer. I did try it out on Lamania, and the Arcane Archer feels a lot better when the attack speed is pretty much double what it is during the early game. This doesn't affect the end game, it's just the early game. So where does this character go from here, and what are we supposed to do with it? Well, I decided that I wasn't going to be using the capstone of Eldritch Knight, and instead of focusing on just the raw elemental damage, I decided instead to go with the capstone of Arcane Archer, which meant that I would be able to get a little bit more double shot for some more damage, a little bit more acid damage from the Arcane Archer tree, as well as the slaying arrow, so I can have a lot of additional damage. Combining that with Hunt's End from the Shirati Champion tree, my character is able to deal a decent amount of damage throughout the endgame. Since I decided I wasn't going to be going into the top tier of the Eldritch Knight tree, I figured I could just do a little bit of multiclassing to pick up some rogue, and since I had all this intelligence, I already maxed out my rogue skills, which was kind of nice at level 15. So now the character is going to be an 18 wizard to rogue archer. Is this going to be good? I'm not 100% sure. I think that there's going to be a decent amount of damage, and I don't think this is the highest damage archer you could create. I don't think it's going to be far off. I think this character will actually provide nearly comparable damage to that of the Monk Ranger. One of the issues with not being the Monk Ranger is the Monk Ranger can access paralyzing arrows, and by going Wisdom, have a paralyzing DC of over 100, easily able to paralyze lots of monsters, especially Reapers, whereas this character is absolutely not going to do that. But this character will also have Meteor Swarm and Massive Monster. So we're going to see kind of which one lines up a little bit better as we go on. It's been an interesting experiment, but I will say it is difficult for me to log in and play every single day when I attack so slowly. I'm the kind of character that likes going fast. If you watch my streams, you'll know that every single time I get affected by any type of slow, I am like livid. I'm just like, let me go faster. Let me run through the game. I don't want to slow down. I hate this slow. I hate my attack speed being slow. And when the character just happens to have built-in slow attack speed, it becomes very difficult to kind of stomach. I think after this, there's going to be a situation where I want to try out some of the other ranged builds to compare them to Inquisitive, like repeating Crossbow and Great Crossbow, just to have a bit of perspective to understand, okay, how is this different, and what is it other than the incredible amount of damage, double shot, ranged power, and additional on-hit damage that you get from Inquisitive that makes it good? What could these other things need? Because as I said, I don't think that just upping the damage on bow builds is good enough. I think bows need to be somehow distinct and separate, and they need to be done. This needs to be done with care to make sure that they're still pretty fun. Because I don't want to have a situation where just, oh yeah, if you play as a bow and an Inquisitive, they both fire at the same rate, so it doesn't matter. I'd like there to be something else. So hopefully, Standing Stone Games will come up with something cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing that in the future. However, if you want to go into this character, I'll kind of detail out how I built it right here. So here we have the Arcane Archer, as I have decided to build it. However, we're doing this in a bit of a different way. This time, we're going Wizard, and Half-Elf, and Rogue, and no Ranger whatsoever, which is kind of a whole bunch of weird choices that I'm going to detail out right now. So this character is in fact intelligence-based. I do need dexterity, which is why I did start with a 14 dexterity, and since I have tomes, I'm able to get up enough dexterity to get all of the ranged feats. That includes combat archery at level 21. And then this character, of course, is intelligence focused. Intelligence being the main stat, it's going to fuel pretty much everything I do. Fuels my spell points, fuels my spells, increases my rogue skills that I have, so I've got Disable Device and Search. And on top of that, allows me to hit and damage with my bow attacks. As far as feats went, it's pretty basic. You kind of just want to take all of the ranged feats. So I just go down to ranged feats and take these whenever you can. Starting out with point blank shot because it's the first one you have to take. Then taking rapid shot, precise shot, many shot. All of the feats that include the word shot. And then using your wizard feats to take other stuff, like extend, maximize, or quicken. I decided to take extend, maximize, and quicken because extend and quicken are pretty simple. Allow you to you don't really use all your mana. So being able to use more spell points during quests because usually you're firing arrows is fine. And then, of course, extend and quicken. Quicken because, casting your spells fast is good. Extend because extending your haste is very good. It's just convenient so you don't have to recast stuff. And then maximize. When you get close to the end of a quest, you can just throw this on and do a bunch of extra damage with your spells, which is kind of nice. As far as any other feats, that's pretty much it. I also took Insightful Reflexes because getting your reflex saves based off your intelligence is kind of nice since I have evasion, so this gives me an extra 10 on my saves, so my reflex save being 38, I pretty much never have to worry about anything reflex-oriented. As far as spells go, I don't even have most of the spells. This character uses, or is generally going to be using Knight's Training, so a lot of the stuff that I've got here, most of the damage spells. I took Acid mostly for Conjuration, because I thought Acid would be kind of useful, and it avoids a lot of damage reductions. Since I'm an Acid Arrow character, it kind of runs together. And then we just kind of use a lot of buff spells, Blur, Displacement, Jump, Night Shield, Greater Heroism, that kind of thing. As far as the actual build is concerned, this character is a half-elf, and you do need to be a half-elf or an elf to make this build work, but I have all my elf lives, so I figured why not try half-elf. Then you put points to get the Arcane Archer tree, and then you're able to start loading into Arcane Archer here. Now, important thing to note about this character, I decided to use the Dilettante for Paladin, which lets me use up to 4 of my Charisma to give me bonus saves, so I do get +4 to all saves since I did decide to do a half-elf. Important thing to note, if you decide to play as a real elf, you actually have to put points into Arcanum to be able to take the Arcane Archer tree, and it costs 16 points in here instead of 14, so keep that in mind. Other than that, core things, Harper Agent, we got Intelligence to damage, and we also have Know the Angles here. We took Intelligence to hit out of Eldritch Knight, so I have Intelligence to hit and damage, and I can increase my damage based on my Intelligence with Know the Angles. And then out of Eldritch Knight, we've gone up and we've grabbed Knight's Transformation. I will, once I reach level 20, need to respec this tree. We only want to spend 23 points taking Subtle Force 1 as well as Knight's Transformation. And then going into Arcane Archer, which will give us enough points to take Mystical Archer up here for the additional 20% double shot, which is really, really, really good and way better than 1 point of intelligence. As far as progression and how this character went, I mean, it's pretty simple. You want the Acid Arrow damage, you want the Eldritch Knight damage. So the way I started it is I went into the half-elf tree first, got Arcane Archer unlocked, and then got my acid damage. I went 1, 2, 3. So I got all the way up to here, 12 points in the Arcane Archer tree before I did anything else. Once I got the 12 points in the Arcane Archer tree, I immediately got Intelligence to hit, so I could actually hit some stuff. And then I went into Eldritch Knight until I got the Intelligence to hit out of here. Then I respec'd this tree to get Intelligence to hit and damage. And then I kind of started spending into Eldritch Knight until I was at 25 points. And then I'm going back into Arcane Archer now to respend the rest of my points. So it's a pretty simple progression. I don't use Pale Master on this character because you don't really have enough points to be able to use Pale Master, but the goal is to have this exact setup in the half-elf tree. In the Eldritch Knight, we're going to drop the Intelligence, so it'll only be 23. In Arcane Archer, we're taking all of the cores. On top of that, we're also going to be taking the Elemental Arrows all the way up, as well as Arrow of Slaying and Final Strike. We may actually take, not this one, Runebow, which is just +2 to hit and damage for 2 points, which is not too bad. It's fairly good, something to consider, and that's pretty much all of our points going in. I'm also going to be taking Paralyzing Arrows as well as Smiting Arrows and Banishing Arrows, because each one of these gives +1 to enchantment DCs, and this character will end up being an enchanter, so we do take enchantment focus as well on this character, which is kind of nice. As far as equipment and itemization goes, it's fairly simple. I just gear for intelligence, make sure I've got an acid spell power item, which are my rock boots. These are actually the only spell power items I have equipped, so I should probably get something like the Pansophic Circlet. That's actually a way better idea than the Executioner's Helm. I'm going to have to put on the Pansophic Circlet. And then, of course, we're using the Silver Longbow because this is the best bow that I have for this character. So as I said, the character's pretty fun to play. You just kind of fire arrows. It's not too bad. It does run into the one problem of being a little bit slow, of course, because as you can see, this is my attack speed. Now watch, this is my basic attack speed, right? This is how quickly I attack. So, like, about a shot a second? No, it's like a shot every 1.3 seconds. So now we turn on Knight's Transformation, which doubles our base attack bonus. So our base attack bonus goes from 8 to 16, and now it's a little less than... It used to be less than 1 shot per second, now it's a little more. So it's about a 30% attack speed increase just by turning that on. And of course we add haste into the mix, and you're firing like a pro. However, unfortunately, this character can't match the sustained damage as other stuff, so it's like the Inquisitive. But we're doing our best. Now, the Knight's Transformation does make it so your spells end up being melee, but that's actually okay. Gives you a little bit of universal spell power, doesn't affect your bow damage, and then if you want to cast a spell at range, you just toggle the effect off, cast the spell, toggle it back on. And that's pretty much it, which is kind of nice. It doesn't actually cost spell points to toggle it on and off, so you can just do it whenever, which means, you know, right before a fight, you take off the Eldritch Knight. So I've got Eldritch Knight on, or Transformation on right now. I'm running around, I'm doing stuff. I want to cast a hold person or an instant death spell. I toggle it off, cast the spell, toggle it back on, which is why it's here. Generally, you can't do this on a regular Eldritch Knight because once you get into epics, using epic defensive fighting. But this character doesn't use epic defensive fighting because I can't. That doesn't work with this character, so reduce my bow damage to 0. So of course we're not doing that. Now granted, one of the problems with this character is I have no double shot, 2%, just coming from the the ship. And then I have pretty much no ranged power either. All of that stuff is going to come from epics, which is unfortunate, and also later points spent in the Arcane Archer tree. So it's going to take us a little time to get some of that damage. Again, I don't think this character is going to do the most damage, but it's not too bad. We also gain a lot of damage from Many Shot, and it is crazy how much more powerful we get when we press Many Shot. I mean, Many Shot right now gives 67 range power and brings my double shot up to 122%, so you're firing multiple arrows every time you fire, which is kind of cool. 2 arrows, 2 arrows. Eventually you fire 3 arrows sometimes. Sometimes you fire 3 arrows. Does it only animate 2? It only animate... Oh, no, it does animate 3. It just doesn't show it there. It does animate 3. Anyway, that's pretty much it. That's how I built the character, so if you want to try this one out yourself, that's kind of how you would do it. Is this going to be better or worse? Well, it's more expensive, and I wouldn't really strictly say it's better. I think that the Monk Ranger build is still going to be the best at the end of the day. But I'm going to take this level 30. I'm going to fully gear it out, and you'll be able to see exactly how this character performs at the end of the day. So thank you guys for watching. As always, have a fantastic day. Also, let me know if there's any other characters you want to see be played here. I'm always looking for new ideas, so leave a comment and let me know. And that's all I got. Thank you guys for watching. Drive safe. See you later.